When it comes to my exes, I have to make a statement that I know is true. And if they both really thought about it, or if they all thought about it, they'd know it's true too. And I forgive them because I was able to forgive me. They can say on the outside of themselves that they forgive me, like my ex Jen can say she forgives me. My ex Brittany doesn't even want to talk to me, so therefore she wouldn't even say she forgives me. She would just say she doesn't care. But if they can't forgive themselves, whether they understand it or not, whatever it is that they felt was inconsistent about themselves that caused the breakup, whether they weren't good enough for me, whether it was their feelings changed, and it's just going to change their life. So there's a part of them that got affected in a way that thought, hey, something was wrong with me. That's why it didn't work out. But I forgive him, but they never forgave themselves inside. They don't have the self-respect. They don't have the self-integrity. They don't have the self-forgiveness and the self-love that I do for myself. Because I know when I look back and I think about my relationship and my marriage with my ex-wife, Jen, at the very end, when things felt done with me, and it was only because I made a big mistake, because I didn't believe in any spiritual stuff, and it just really hurt my feelings. My heart hurt because it was about my best friend. That's not an excuse, but it's the reason. And working up to that point, nothing against her, but she was a depressed person, and she would do things that come home from her job and just want to go to sleep. And I worked really hard. I was an iron worker and working third shift other times and stuff like that. But I was still there with the kids because that's what drove me. That's what really kept me going. And she knows that. She could never really think of a time that I wasn't like eager for physical activity, playfulness, either whether it was romantic or sexual or playful with the kids or to go do something or to do something exciting and active. If it was exercise or going out to have fun and party, or if it was literally, most importantly, like to have family time. I was about all that. And there's actually no one in her family that, if they really thought about it, could think other than that, except maybe they didn't like the fact that back then I drank, and back then I partied, or back then I didn't act or talk or do certain things that they did. Like, the only thing that I can think of that any person in her family can really knock on me for is for licking the pudding off my plate at a restaurant just because I was being funny with the kids so I could get some pudding on my nose and be silly. And they made a big deal out of it. That's the only thing I can actually think of. How silly is that? Like, other than that, they couldn't point out a time that I was being a bad father, that I didn't show that I cared, that I didn't show that I was loving, that I didn't show as an individual person that I was willing to be active, involved, and into things. Jen can't say that. Brittany can't either, except for when I met Brittany after having a relationship that was a marriage that now was divorced, and my kids were gone, and my heart was broken, and I had a young girl, 10 years younger than me, who was just coming out of high school. And it was that young feeling that I had felt like I was missing. And I understand why I did it. And I forgive myself for all the stuff that I did because I had to. And I've totally forgiven them, even though they're still wronging me, because I know why they are, because they haven't forgiven themselves. And they'll just push it off to the side for the rest of their lives and end up being miserable like their mothers, because they keep avoiding their problems. You can't push your problem off to the side. Brittany really can't say that there was ever a time that I wasn't a good person with my family, that I wasn't there for her, that I didn't want activity and physical, sexual, emotional, like going out to have fun. She couldn't say that either. The only thing was, when we met, we both agreed that it was going to be open. And even while we were together, it was going to be open. And then after we had our second kid, it had to stop. Like, that's something that you just can't expect somebody to stop like that because now I want to, you have to. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily work that way. And even though it wasn't working that way, I did it. And I did stop doing what she wanted me to do. And then the biggest issue with her was because her and her friends at her job, her friends were having problems with their boyfriends and families. And she thought that she was having problems with me. In my mind, our problem was I couldn't make enough money to pay child support, and the only thing that we could ever afford to do to have any fun was drink, like, often and go to bed and have sex. We drank and had sex. That was it. You know, it was like, that lost its fun after a while. It can't be all you do. And because on half of that was me being miserable, working like 18 hours of my day, having barely any time with her and Jasmine and Leo, and then not seeing my other kids at all and being heartbroken. So I understand why she got hurt and why she didn't enjoy it. I get it. But I forgive her for that because I'm able to forgive me for knowing that I tried as hard as I could. They can't forgive themselves because they made mistakes. And instead of saying anything about forgiving themselves or really looking within and doing some self-reflection, they'll just push it off. And if the thing comes up, maybe they'll say, oh, I forgive you. I've forgiven you. I'm over that. But they can't say that and then keep the kids away from me, not want to talk to me, and treat me like I'm some kind of plague. That's not something you do with somebody you forgive, especially somebody that you've loved once and had children with. This is something that every mature adult should understand and should hear. I may have used my example, but it applies to everyone. You got to forgive yourself first. You can't just say, I forgive you, and then I'm going to push off the real issue for the rest of my life, because that's not going to do anything for you but keep you in depression. And it does catch up with you. And when it does, it's heavy, because it takes all the people you've affected along with it. So please, think about what you do before you ruin your families, because it's not about you and the problems that you can't face, because you need to in order to be who you can be for the people around you and for yourself.